Thank you for coming to End Capitalism today's YouTube channel. I hope that you have visited the website dismantlecapitalismglobally.com. That is dismantlecapitalismglobally.com. I'm going to take a detour from my last video because I promised that I would go into the part about colonialism from this book called How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. This book is jam packed. It has so much information. It is a case study that so many people need to look at because it is so relevant. It's like Dr. Rodney Walter, who wrote the book, was doing research, about the continent of Africa, and it's how Europe came into the continent and just disrupted everything. But even in the 21st century world, like what he's saying in the book still has relevancy. It still can be seen, and you still see the remnants of that invasion of white settlers on the continent still happening in different media outlets, in different socioeconomic angles. So that book is very profound. It's I'm telling you, you have to get this book if you don't have it already, of course. But today I want to just take a detour from that, and I promise the next video will be from excerpts from the book. But I want to talk about religion and capitalism, because religion is big business, right? On the capitalism, and many people question if that should be the case, if religions should be getting tax exempts for one, and then should they be operating in the grandiose way, right? Because so many of the pastors, excuse me, so many of the pastors are rich. So many of the religion, the institution itself is rich to the point where they have other institutions, educational. Some may have businesses. So the capitalist part is entrenched in the profit scheme of religion. And I just want to talk about that because today is a very important day for one religion, Christianity. And, Christianity has different denominations, as you know, but for example, the Catholic Church, which is not different from a Christian denomination, is worth billions. And they have many schools, they have other organizations. So people may say, well, they do good because they have those different branches, such as education and giving food to the poor and so forth. But how do they get the money is the question you need to be asking yourself. It's not the fact that they're doing good, because a lot of organizations do what they do, which is give food and build houses, whatever it is that they do in different countries. So they're not doing anything differently than an organization that is non-religious. And the whole idea is that they get money from poor people, poor working class people who have been convinced that going to church and giving to the church or the mosque will enhance your life. That's the theme, and that's been the theme for a long time. So the question is, has religions impacted the world in the way that is beneficial to the world? And there are going to be different responses, of course. Many times it will be biased, specifically from those who are religious. But as a non-religious person, I can tell you that religions have not done anything good, in the sense that I feel like they are the problem, or they are part of the problem, from a capitalistic standpoint as well as from a moral standpoint, because they are warring against each other, right? They have different information that they're all trying to push into other people's lives and to make it the dominant idea. So they're constantly battling. They from one book. They all have one book that they all have these different interpretations from, and they're all battling to make it relevant in the lives of people. And the people that they reach are usually poor people, marginalized people who need something more than some scripture or a biblical verse. And I know that, I visited the Caribbean a couple years ago. I was born in the Caribbean, but I visit occasionally. And I was shocked to see how many different churches were entering into the village that I was living in. And how many people in that village were highly religious people. But I didn't see the economic situation change from when I was growing up as a little girl. I still see the same hardship that were present in my younger years, but now they were like so religiously inclined, but their socioeconomic lives did not change. And I was questioning, like, if you're able to bring scriptures and you're able to bring books and you're able to convince people to join this religion, why is it that you're not bringing socioeconomic change instead? Where these people in my village, for example, would not be poor, like they would not be struggling because, well, we have big families. So, there is a struggle to feed families everywhere. But as I was looking at what was happening while I was in the Caribbean, and I was, always connecting information, always connecting circumstances to other people, because I bet that's what happens in the other villages in the world, is that some missionary comes up and shows some poor person or somebody who's struggling, even though they're working, some scripture, and the poor person or the working class person accepts this and believes that this will change their lives. But from a socioeconomic angle, it does not change the life. From a spiritual, it may enhance the spiritual mindset, but the practical ways that we need to be focusing on is not being dealt with. The practical ways, whereas poverty and lack of jobs, or when there are jobs, they are not paying, those are not being tackled in a practical way that they should, whereas we can potentially see an end to those problems. So, even though the hardships are still continuing on and there's still economic imbalances, these institutions are still profiting. They are venture capitalists. Like, people need to realize that these are just venture capitalists who have figured out a way to get poor people to enter into their mission, right? And like I said, the problems, the socio problems that needs to be tackled and fulfilled, and making sure that they are being solved, being left behind. They're not being looked at as problems to be solved. And I kind of just want to talk about this post that I came across today on my Instagram, from someone who talked about how colonialism impacts still impacts people to this day, and how it came to be. So he has an image on his Instagram. It's called Vintage Caribbean. I'm sorry, Vintage dot Caribbean. So I follow him on Instagram. He has many posts, and he has this image of a guy coming into town on a donkey, and there are villagers around this person with palm branches coming into the village, in the same way Jesus rode into, town on a donkey. So there's the image of that. And then on top of it, it says this, it's quote, "Colonialization is the reason for the season. European countries conquered or colonized more than 80% of the entire world, forcing the subjugated peoples to adopt Christianity, hence the Easter and other holidays around the world." So this is all connected to colonialism. And Walter Rodney talks about colonialism in his book. It's all about how there were a people there, right? There were always people there, just like the natives were here, but another group comes in, decides to take over for capitalistic reason. Because they understand that there's value in that village or in that region of the world. So now they have to definitely work their way into getting part of the resources, right? And that's what happened. That's why you have European influence in so many parts of the world, is because of colonialism. It's because of Europe coming into different parts and taking over and taking the access to the resources, the valuable resources, to make their empire more profitable and more desirable. So that's what's happening. But going back to the religion part of capitalism, it's big business. It's unfortunate because you see the disparity of pastors and priests, having housing, food, having medical, but then their congregations are also suffering. There's still that suffering. It's not gone away just because those institutions are in place, and it needs to be analyzed. Like, why is that? Why is it that you are a moral institution, but you have not been able to help your own people, the own people who are giving you the money to do charity work in countries? They are suffering too. They have just been convinced or persuaded that they're doing God a favor by giving money to the church. So it always baffles me that this is continuing to be the trajectory, that we are continuing on in that journey, even in the midst of so much research, even in the midst of so much analysis, so much information has emerged, and yet we still have the same system in place, causing the same problems, not solving anything at all. And as this religious holiday is happening this weekend, I'm even more like just feeling uneasy. I'm not feeling my best, because I'm just like, I like to look at differences, and I like to differentiate. And the purpose of doing that is that the problem solving part will come about. So what is the solution to all of this? How do you solve these problems, which are capitalistic in so many different forms? From business to nonprofit to religion. How will the world ever come to the conclusion that capitalism is impacting so many different in so many different ways, and we might have to look at the ways and the systems in order to solve those problems? How do you convince a religious person that yeah, you're doing something that everyone else is doing in some way, shape, or form? You're not really doing anything different, but you have been able to convince people that you are different. Under refined lens, of course, there's not a lot of difference between a religious institution's work and a non-for-profit work. Both of them are tied to capitalism because they need it to continue to provide. Capitalism is still stuck to their missions, because they need to provide the goods, and they're not like anti-capitalist people. They're not vouching, they're not talking against capitalism. They're just going on in their own way, in the defined way. And that's just what it is. It's an unfortunate reality that we don't examine things more, not just ourselves but our environments, and how we too are contributing to some of the chaos in this world by just the things that we do and by the things that we believe. It has to be a different mindset in terms of analysis and examination. And I encourage you to be that person. I encourage you to look at the problems and look at the root of the problems, to find out, what is causing these problems that we're seeing. The world is in a complete chaotic phase right now, and it isn't just the surface news reporting that mainstream media does. There are many layers to the problems, and we have to get into the mindset of looking at the layers, looking at why these problems exist, the history of these problems, and work to make better solutions, come up with better ideas, so that we can have some level of peace, some level of comfort, not just for ourselves, but for those around us and those who will come after us. We have to be more of visionaries and not just look at the present, but look at the past, the present, and project for the future, forecast for the future. This week I was looking at this scientists who chain themselves to a building because they're trying to raise awareness about climate change. And they're saying how we only have such a short time to reverse the damage. And I'm like, why isn't the world looking at this? Why are we not paying attention to these people? Because they have examined the ecosystem, and they're seeing something that we are avoiding, that we're so busy going to work and leaving our decisions to leaders that we're not seeing the things that we need to be seeing or we need to be paying attention to. So we have to get better at looking at the world around us. We have to get better at being part of the change so that we're not just stuck in a work mode and believe that that is going to save us all the time, or that is the ultimate saving mechanism. Exit that mentality. Be the different person. Be the person who will listen to the scientists, because that's what they do. They pay attention to the activities of the environment. So we need to listen to them. So I encourage you all the time. I ask you to just be part of change. Don't do what everybody else is doing, because literally everybody else is doing the same thing. So be the visionary, be the different thinker, and ultimately you'll become the different doer in life. Check out the website dismantlecapitalismglobally.com.